You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Leading the Factory Forward. This episode is number 77, and it's going to be about finding your ideal customer. At Leading the Factory Forward, our goal is to help you create a compelling future for yourself, your teams, and your organization. I encourage you to visit my website and download the summary at the bottom of the podcast episode and use that as a tool to capture notes as you start your exploration of this episode's concepts. Or to help you get started on your journey and to stay up to date on new episodes, please download the free worksheet, 3 Steps You Need for a More Productive Workday. Well, today we're going to talk about finding your ideal customer. In the past, we've talked about defining your value proposition, but it's also woven into defining who it is you're going to sell to, who's going to buy from you. And it literally helps to describe them as a person. You can't just sell to anyone or everyone. You have to be selling to a particular person or an avatar. And in the end, organizations don't buy from you. People buy from you. So you really have to, again, think about who it is you're selling to. Bit of a review from the value proposition episode. We look at what we do in terms of what's the fit between the services that you'd like to provide and what the customer needs or wants. And there are 2 sections as we look at the value proposition: what you offer and the customer needs. What you offer involves things like what are the products and services you wish to offer? How are you going to create gains for the customer? How are you going to alleviate pains for the customer? And what the customer wants is on the flip side of that. What is it they aspire to? What are the things they're seeking to achieve? What are their pains? What are the things that irritate or frustrate them? And then simply there's a piece of it. What does a customer's jobs? What are the jobs he has to do each and every day that may not be a big gain or a pain, but they're things he has to do? Those things can sometimes be frustrating. Those are things you can sell solutions to. Customer jobs can also be, what can they not live without? As I mentioned before, the things that happen every day. The fact that they're routine activities may still mean they're critical, and you can have a solution that you sell for that. Then in terms of the value proposition, what are the emotional needs of the customer? It may be a sense of self-worth, a sense of accomplishment. So what are you going to provide to that customer in terms of their emotional viewpoint? How will they feel better or feel relieved or feel a sense of accomplishment with what your solution provides? And then the pains, again, are equally as important. What are the things that annoy or frustrate them? And you may seek to find out where things didn't work out for the customer. What happened when that happened? Or ask things like, where are they currently losing in the marketplace? Then again, there's the idea of gains, the things they'd like to have. They might like to have lower costs. They might like to have a simpler process to do whatever they're doing in their business. And they maybe just want their work to flow more easily. Again, some of this comes back to emotion. What's a positive for them and a positive perceived by the outside world? What would they term outrageous success that they haven't seen so far? What might you deliver that you might help create that outrageous success? So now, again, reviewing what we talked about in creating your value proposition, now we move on to let's describe your ideal customer. And it could also be called your customer avatar. And if you look up ideal customers, customer avatars, there's all kinds of resources that you can find on that. To start with, I'd just say, think about when you've really enjoyed working with someone in the past or on a particular project, and it was a great success. What happened? What were the things that you enjoyed about either working with that person or working on that project and the success you achieved? Think about those things that you can maybe translate some of those things, which are based in your perception, into things that might form the perfect customer for you. And a lot of what we're going to talk about here, again, customer avatar and 5 Easy Steps is a blog post from Digital Marketer, and there'll be a link in the show notes for that. But see, there's kind of the steps they suggest as you go about making a customer avatar. The first is to look at the goals and values of who this customer is and what they might have. What's important to them? What are the things that you might say they're trying to do for themselves through their business? What are the things that are important? It could be quality. It could be they're trying to provide superior customer service. Maybe they're providing speed to market. Whatever the things that they are valued, it's the basis for their business, not just what they do, but it's the thing they're really trying to focus on. They're trying to create customer delight for their customers. And they have to have a match for what you want to do. It could be that they want to deliver things each and every time, on time, all the time. Well, maybe you're more of a person who's working in innovation projects. It may just be that that's not a good fit. If you want to do innovation projects, you need to make sure that's what you're focusing on in terms of your ideal customer. To discover what the ideal customer looks like, you have to, again, think of somebody, but think of what may be their sources of information. And this is critical to determine where your customer is. Right now, you don't know necessarily where they're at. Where do they hang out online? Where do they hang out in person? I mean, that gives you an idea. If you go on to the next step and actually do some customer discovery, you need to know where to find who could be your ideal customer. What things do they read? What things do they listen to? What things do they watch on TV? Could also be what kind of gurus do they follow? Whose books do they read? Or what are the things they're following? Again, this will help you if you actually go out to find the right people to do customer discovery with. And the other thing is this can help you decide where you're going to show up, whether it be in the form of advertising or where you spend your time publishing your blog post or podcast. And another idea that the digital marketers suggest is use a section that says no one else would. And the way you do that is you would say something like, my ideal customer would read this book, but no one else would. And the idea is to, again, find the niche, find the ideas, whether it be books or magazines, blogs, conferences, gurus. Where specifically would your ideal customer be? They won't be everywhere, and they won't be talking to everyone. Think about where they would be that no one else would be. Then another piece of this is just the demographic information. There may be things like age, gender, marital status, income, job title, so on, and it'll depend on your product. But it could be that your ideal customer is a business owner. So you need to know that you're going to be speaking with business owners, not with the HR department, or you're not going to be speaking with the engineers. Instead, you want to be speaking with the marketing people. So you need to find out what their job is. And then sometimes, say, depending on their age, people in their 20s are not looking at information in the same place as people in their 50s are looking at information. So it's important for you to decide what's your ideal customer. Is it somebody in their 20s, somebody in their 50s? Could be either one, but they're going to be in different places probably. Likewise with income, you have to understand whatever solutions you are seeking to provide, can your customer afford them? So if I'm talking about one-man job shops, it's going to be hard for me to sell a $10 million piece of equipment to them. It's just not going to be a good fit. On the other hand, I'm not going to be selling small toolkits to people that have 100 people in their shop. They've got other sources of that stuff. So it's one of those things you have to have a match between what your services or products are and what you think your ideal customer is. The other thing that the digital marketing group says is actually create a quote for your customer. Something like, I strive to do this, or I am fully committed to quality. I'm fully committed to just-in-time service. Those kinds of things. Again, you're trying to personalize this. So you're selling to a person and not just a company or some abstract idea. So what would they say if they had a quote that you might be using? And again, this whole thing literally gives you a persona. And when you look at examples of customer avatars, I mean, they're very specific. It's a woman that's 25 to 35. She has $150,000 in income, things like that. They're very specific about it. And it also makes it alive for you so that you have that personal picture that I'm talking to somebody, not just kind of talking to everybody. The next piece, again, coming back from the value proposition, is really look at their challenges and pain points. And again, as you think about that and think about the things like in the pain points, what's missing, that's often where the opportunity can arise. So if you want to sell an innovation process, you need to find somebody that is actually struggling to keep up with new products or something like that. So you can sell your innovation process, or you can use that to help them spark new ideas. The other thing here is as you have more of a, quote, real person to talk to, it helps you write copy and create either advertising or whether it be podcasts or blog posts or anything where you're trying to communicate with the customer because you're talking to a person and not just talking to a role or something. And the final piece is kind of think about the objections and the role in the purchase process. These are two different things, but for your ideal customer, what would be their questions, objections? What are the things that they might say, I can't use you because you're too expensive, I don't have time for that, whatever it may be. Think ahead of time about what the objections might be with your ideal customer. And then the purchase process. If you're talking with a person who owns their own business and they're in all of them themselves, they can decide today or tomorrow, I'm going to buy this. If you're in a larger company, they probably have some process to go through. I mean, if you get into something like the government, that can be a very long process for the purchasing. And then you need to know who you have to talk to. Often, the person that's going to use your service may not be the person that makes the buying decision. So you have to do a couple of things. One, it's best if you can talk to whoever can make the buying decision. But at the very least, you have to be able to arm the person who you're trying to sell this to with the information they need to convince the person who's making the buying decision. Again, imperfect, but you have to know who's the economic buyer and what's the process for doing that. So if it's going to be a 6-month process, you have to plan for those things in your business that, hey, I'm going to sell services to people or products, but it's going to be a 6-month cycle that I have to go through before I actually get the sale, as it were. And then the final piece is you can build multiple avatars. Again, there may be different segments of your business. So it could be that you are going to sell things to individual business owners, but you may also have a service that you're going to sell to companies of between 10 and 100 employees. And you may even have something you want to sell to larger corporations. So you have to look at maybe different avatars. It's best to start with just one. Focus your efforts. You're not going to try to sell to anybody and everybody, but focus your efforts on who would be that first ideal customer and start your practice and your sales cycle with something like that. So that concludes what we were talking about today. And again, the 5 steps for, creating an avatar or an ideal customer is look at their goals and values. Look at their sources of information. Assign them actual demographic information so that, again, you're creating a real person, as it were. Considering their challenges and pain points. Looking back at your value proposition. What are the challenges and pain points? And then what are the objections? And what is the sales process they'll go through? So that whole thing is what's in their way of saying yes to you? There's probably going to be something. On the other hand, if you've done a great job, maybe there isn't. But it's always useful to at least have thought through that. And then finally, that idea of if you have customers with different demographics, you might create an avatar for each of them. So that concludes this idea of how to find your ideal customer. This is a process that can be used for small manufacturing leaders. This is also can be used by the silver entrepreneurs. In each case, we need to decide who we're selling something to and who they are. So it fits for both categories of people here that listen to this podcast. So what's up next? Well, we're going to continue a mix of solo episodes and interviews with experts. Some will be in manufacturing, but also some in areas that can help you build your business in general or become a silver entrepreneur. At least in one episode during the month, I will be sharing specific thoughts and ideas on becoming a silver entrepreneur or having an interview with someone who can help you in that particular area. So as always, I encourage you to visit my website, download the summary at the bottom of the podcast as you start your exploring these ideas from this episode. And to help you get started on your journey and to stay up to date on new episodes, consider downloading the free worksheet, 3 steps you need for a more productive workday. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in another show.